Oh my God, everything's crashing. It's the beginning of the end. What do? So if you spend 5 minutes on YouTube, you'll watch 1,000,001 videos that talk about the end is nigh. And so I want to give you my opinion after being in the real estate world for over 18 years on the real estate market, on what I think is happening, should you buy a house, and really what the long-term effects of this pandemic is going to be on the real estate market, especially here in Central Florida. Hey everyone, it's Race Robinson, your favorite Florida mortgage broker. Do me a favor, if you like this video, hit that like button, subscribe to this channel. I do really relevant information on buying real estate, being an investor, mortgage financing, and really anyone that's looking to buy a home. And doing that helps other people find these videos, and hopefully you find this video helpful too. And there's probably no question that I'm getting asked more than ever, which is right now a good time to buy a home? And I did a video on my prediction for the real estate market for 2020, but I decided to redo this video because obviously things have changed since the beginning of the year. And so I lived through the recession, the Great Recession they call it, of 2008 and 9. I now will be able to say that I lived through the Great Pandemic of 2020. So let's kind of go through if you should buy a home, at least my thought process, and what questions you can ask yourself if now's a good time to buy a home. Appreciation. That is what everybody thinks about with real estate, is the appreciation. And so one, I've always had this view, I've done lots of videos on this, that you should not buy a home for short-term appreciation. If you buy a home and sell it in 2 or 3 years, there's just not enough time to recoup all the costs that it takes to buy and sell real estate. Over time, long-term appreciation is always in your favor. It doesn't matter whether you buy at the height of the market or the bottom of the market. Trying to time the market almost never works, and you really never know when that is. And so really what you're doing when you buy a house is taking money that you would pay in rent and diverting it to owning a house. And there have been lots of studies to show that if you own a home, statistically, you're going to be wealthier over your lifetime. So one, what most people are worried about is short-term appreciation. And I'm going to go over what I think this year and the long-term health of the market is. But I will say, again, that the reason to buy a house is to, if you're going to be in the house for a while, call it more than 4 or 5 years, at least that's your plan, and you're going to have the thought of, why pay someone else's mortgage? I want to pay my own. That is the perfect reason to buy a house. Harder guidelines is definitely making it tougher to buy. So I've been lending for a long, long time and been through all kinds of different market changes. And right now, because of the amount of forbearances through the CARES Act, because of the pandemic, because to me, the pandemic is a health crisis, but it's also now just as much as obviously an economic crisis. And banks and lenders and businesses are all trying to figure out how to survive. And so when those kinds of things change and people quit making mortgage payments, guidelines are going to be tougher. So you need to not take for granted where you're at more than ever, even regardless of what your credit is. It is tougher, rates are low, but some of the costs are different. You really just need to be with someone that you trust that will go over information, be transparent, so you're clear on how this pandemic affects you getting a loan, because I can tell you without a doubt it does. So just keep in mind that lending guidelines have changed, have gotten harder, but there's lots of people buying and banks are still lending. So really the question is, for most people, and I'm asking this myself, owning houses and investment property, is what's the long-term effect of this pandemic? And so I'm going to take you through my opinion and a lot of the stuff that I've been reading and try to take away emotion out of the facts. And so the facts are that the economy was doing pretty good before the pandemic started. Now, that doesn't mean it was perfect. The Fed was already getting involved, and most people felt that we were a long time, really record time, between recession to recession. So there was already a conversation about a market slowdown. So this pandemic obviously is something that nobody could have predicted, and it's an external thing that will be removed, meaning the pandemic, COVID, will eventually be past us, at least for now, and people will go back to work and businesses will open up. And in my opinion, at that point, things are going to start ramping back up. who knows how far. And I definitely believe there will be long-term effects of this virus, of this pandemic that we went through. That being said, Freddie Mac just came out with a study, which they said that they feel the first 6 months out of the year, there'll be about a 3 to 5% decline. And in the last 6 months, they feel like most markets will make that back up. And most markets will have a net positive for the year, which is pretty exciting, meaning that if you're a homeowner or you're thinking to buy, now actually this second is probably going to be looked back as one of the best times ever. Going through the recession, I wish I'd have bought 1 million houses in 2010. Hindsight's 2020. And I think people will look back now and say, wow, rates were really, really low. The market was really, really good. There's still a lot of applications. Applications across the nation are down 30%, which is what you would expect. But in Central Florida, there's still tons of sales. I went to another video, which I'll link to in this one, through the monthly numbers, but there's still a lot of sales in our market. Realtors will tell you a lot of people are getting pre-approved. And so a lot of people are not saying they're not going to buy, they're just waiting. And so if you can be one of the people that is not waiting, meaning you're securing your job, you feel like you've got the money and you feel like you're in a space that you can buy, really the big complaint most buyers have is competition, meaning it's so tough to go out there and put an offer when you're competing against 4 or 5 other people, which is very often the case. And right now, even though you may be competing on some houses, it's definitely going to be more this summer, because I believe all the people that are not buying now are going to buy later this year, because rates are on an all-time low and people buy on payments. Meaning if something costs $500 or $300 a month and you're paying the same amount for it, but the interest just lowers the payment, that's a better deal. And right now it's absolutely a better deal. So I think people will eventually get pushed into the housing market. They're just waiting till this pandemic is past us. My opinion is, don't be one of the people that's waiting. Buy now if you feel your situation is good. And I agree 100% with Freddie Mac that by the end of this year, especially here in Central Florida, because the inventory is still really low. And so I think that the inventory has still stayed low. It's went up just a little bit. And this summer, there's going to be maybe 2 or 3 amount of times of buyers that are all of a sudden going to be looking to buy a home. And again, if you have the courage and you're in the right place, now is definitely the time to buy. So ultimately, buying a house is a personal decision. You can reach out to professionals, find out how much you qualify for, talk to real estate agents, and talk to family. But really only you know if you feel like you're in the right space to buy a home, because owning a home is definitely a responsibility. I think people will look back during this time and say, wow, I definitely should have bought, because with rates low and the inventory and some of the things I went over in this video, I think for the long term, real estate is and always will be a great place to put your money instead of paying rent for someone else. So if you have any questions on this or anything else, please reach out to me, text me, email me. Again, if you like the video, like it, subscribe to my channel. Have a great day. I hope you have your own personal recovery, whatever's going on. Let me know what I can do to help, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.